the button.
I got it. So everybody will see that recording in progress sign come up on your screen. If you could go ahead and click that. We won't be recording during the breakout rooms that happen later, but just for the information we're sharing out now in the beginning. So hello, welcome. My name is Erin Shago. I'm over here in Detroit, and I am the membership committee chair for Iyengar Yoga Midwest Association. I will be kind of hosting today, but we have a lot of folks on the board that are here supporting, and you'll get to speak to some of them as well throughout the presentation. Like we told you in the announcement, we plan on going an hour and a half. We know it's a really beautiful day, so we really appreciate you all being online with us right now, and we will keep ourselves to that time limit so that you're not on your computers longer than you need to be. So I want to start before we jump into things by just going over our agenda and what we hope to accomplish today. We will be hearing from Kristen, our former president, and we'll be welcoming in and hearing from Dawn, who has just started her term as president with us. And then we'll be going over some results from the survey that we conducted last winter and spring to give you all an update on what we found in that survey. We also want to take a good chunk of time to do some breakout rooms and have small group discussions so we can hear more from you all. And we'll take some time to do that and then share back in the large group around what you talk about. So a reminder that with the breakout rooms, in the RSVP, we'd asked if folks were interested in having a person of color or a Black identified affinity group. Nobody that was attending today responded saying they need that, but if that is something that you need, you changed your mind, it feels like you want that, or if you don't want to be included in the breakout room for whatever reason, you can message Dawn, and Dawn is going to be organizing the breakout rooms and getting them ready for us. So maybe Dawn, if you just want to enter like a hello in the chat so folks know they can reach out to you with any breakout room needs. And then from there, I'm going to pass it over to Kristen, who's going to tell us about what's been happening in her last term that she wrapped up with us.
Thanks, Erin. Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen Kepnick. I have been, up until December, was president of the Regional Association. I realized when I was working on this slide, I was basically president since the pandemic started until now. So kind of an interesting time to be president. I wanted to make sure I recognized all the board members that were on the call. So I don't know if people want to use the hand raise function to identify themselves, but obviously Erin, we have Dawn, who's the incoming president, Jan, Patrina, and I don't see Carol or Amy, but Laureen is an incoming board member. So thanks to all of you for being here, and this truly is a team effort. So anytime anyone complimented me for the work we were doing over the last 3 years, I was quick to say it had very little to do with me, other than getting out of the way of the board members that had all these great ideas. So I did want to just give some highlights of things that we did accomplish over the last 3 years. So as I said, kind of an interesting time to be trying to run an organization like this. So quickly in 2020, we pivoted to address what was happening with COVID and with our community. So we decided to give COVID grants. The National Association granted us some funds that came out of the, I believe it was online, I don't remember what they called it. There was an online teaching with Abhijata, which they did pretty well financially from. So they dispersed those monies to the regional associations. So we gave grants to teachers that weren't unable to teach because of the pandemic. I think some people pivoted pretty quickly to virtual teaching, but obviously great loss of income. And we really saw our role as supporting the teachers and students in the region. I think that was a great way to do that. And then a side effect of that was we'd ask those teachers if they would be willing to teach a class to give back to the community as sort of a thank you for the grant. And everyone said yes. So we produced the Fall Fest, which was a virtual festival of classes. So that was 2020. And then 2021, we did a virtual retreat. We normally do an in-person retreat every year that INOUS doesn't have a convention. So 2021 would have been one of those years. We decided to do it virtually. And it went well. I think we weren't quite sure how that was going to go, and we did try to make it very accessible financially to everybody in the region. So that was one positive side effect of doing it virtually. And the other thing that we did in 2021 was our note card sale. Oh, and I should point out there is the little images. I thought I'd spice up my slide with some images. The one is a very familiar, the Brady Bunch screen from Zoom. So that was actually from the virtual retreat, some of the participants. And then one of the note cards is pictured on the far right of that top row of photos. The other cool thing about the note cards was that we featured artists from our community. So we had a call for artists, and then some of the proceeds of the cards also went back to those artists. So some of them were teachers, some of them were just practitioners, but we wanted to, it was not my idea. Again, it was a great idea. One of our board members had, I think Patrina. So I was happy to facilitate that. And then this past year, we were really excited. It was a little scary to do our retreat in person again. We wondered if people would come, but we sold out. And the bottom picture is our group at the retreat. So it was terrific to be back in person. And we had a great time being there and practicing together. The board member update I have, I think I kind of prematurely did that. Lorraine Zant is joining us, and she's coming on as treasurer. So I need to recognize our past treasurer, who I don't think is on here today. Amy Reynolds was treasurer almost the whole time. Dawn was treasurer the first year I was president, and then Amy's been treasurer the last 2 years and really did an awesome job. If you registered for anything that we have done in the last 2 years, you interacted with Amy, even if it was an email that came from my name, that was all Amy. I don't think we would have accomplished, she had a hand in everything we've done the last 2 years. So I often told her I wouldn't really have wanted to be president if she wasn't treasurer. So huge kudos to Amy. And then you'll probably hear this more than once today, but we're pretty much always looking for volunteers. And so I hope, if you are inspired by the things we've done, you might consider joining us. If you're seeing things that aren't happening that you would like to happen, that's another great reason to volunteer. I have kind of a corny, not that great example of that, but the last picture in the slide is this t-shirt. I know it's really small, but those are images of BKS Iyengar in Tadasana from Light on Yoga. That was our retreat t-shirt, but the design came from an artist here in Chicago who probably 5 years ago was doing street art, like wheat paste images of Guruji in different poses from Light on Yoga. And I thought, wow, it'd be so cool if we could ever do a t-shirt working with that artist. So my dream finally came true, and we were able to produce these t-shirts. So I'll give a teaser also, because they were hand screen printed by her for the retreat, and they were limited edition, only if you attended the retreat. But we are going to be offering, hopefully in the next couple of months, the opportunity for others to purchase the shirts. They will not be hand screen printed, but they'll be produced like most t-shirts. So if you like the design, stay tuned. It's really a pretty unique shirt, and proceeds will go to support the programs that we do here at IYAMW. I didn't point out in the slide, we do offer scholarships and grants for teachers and others, members at large, to attend different trainings. We do, I don't know if anyone mentioned it already before I was on the call, but we do have scholarships available for the upcoming convention. Deadline to apply is Monday, right? Monday at midnight. Yeah, I have another thing in my life that's happening Monday at midnight, so I wanted to make sure. But please apply. I don't know how we're looking on the applications for this particular convention, but generally we don't get a lot of applications. So that's another way you can get involved, apply for funding. That's pretty much all I have. I don't think we have time for questions right now, but I'll be on the call. So if people have questions, you can drop me a note in the chat, or if we have time at the end, I'd be happy to answer them. But again, none of this, these are not my accomplishments. I really did just try to keep things moving, and we try to be responsive to members' suggestions and questions. oh, the other thing I didn't put on the slide, which was a major, major, major accomplishment, was this survey that we're going to talk about. So kudos to Aaron and the rest of the membership committee. When I joined the board, I think 5 years ago, they were trying to do a survey and it was a huge heavy lift and it didn't happen then. And so it's a major accomplishment that the survey went out, people responded, and this meeting also is a part of that accomplishment. So thanks to everybody who's here for participating, and thanks so much to the committee.
Thanks, Kristen. And yeah, we'll be making time for questions before we go into breakout rooms and then also after. So hang on to, or you're welcome to also put them in the chat and we can work through those later on if you don't want to hang on to the question in your head. We're going to pass it to Dawn next to meet our new president and have her share what she's hoping the next term will look like.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here. Great to work with you guys. Just a little bit about what's going on in the next year. We're taking feedback from our survey and our member meeting today from all of you guys to hear what you have to say and what you're looking forward to, what you want to see more, what you want to hear. Like Kristen said, we also had funding for more scholarships and community grants. If you're interested in doing something as a teacher for your community, just give us an email and we will happily look to help you guys out to do new programs. We also specifically have a budget for kids and teens yoga class. So if you're interested in starting something like that up in your community, let us know. We have monies specifically for that program. All right, so primarily my goals for this year are building off of what Kristen has done in the last 3 years, trying to make it run more smoothly or continue to run smoothly, and looking to recruit new board members and also volunteers for committees. If you're not interested in board, we're happy to have you join a committee. We really want to build the IYAMW community by working with some great people. So if you have skills that you want to share with us or have skills that you would like to develop, you can do that through us. Just contact us for volunteer opportunities. We would be happy to have you, happy to work with you. All right, Aaron, come on down.
One of the skills that we all developed in this process is a lot more technology skills. So we were saying before y'all came on, like, okay, we practice the Zoom stuff. Let's hope it all works. It's amazing how quickly you can get out of the rhythm of Zoom when you're not on it all the time. All right, let's jump into the details on the survey. So just a reminder for folks that weren't familiar with it while it was happening. The survey, like Kristen said, it was a project that it was kind of lingering. When I came on the board almost 3 years ago, there was this idea for a survey. We had to hunt down some documents that folks had and the ideas for questions that had been brewing, but there had been a lot of difficulty launching it. And so I took on the role of membership committee chair and thought, well, this is a specific task that I could work on. And it has filled my whole term. So we actually started working on it in the spring of 2021 with just generating ideas, gathering a group of people who were interested in working on it. And the goal was really to get a better understanding of what regional members, but also what practitioners who aren't members in IYAMW, what is their experience of IYAMW? What are they wanting us to offer? Why are folks involved? Why aren't folks involved? And just to get a better landscape of how are we experienced by the larger Iyengar community in the Midwest. And so we ran the survey from January 17th until April 30th of 2022. It was an electronically delivered survey. We used a platform called Typeform, which for folks who took it, you might remember you could do it on your phone, you could do it on your tablet, you could do it on your computer, and it was an internet browser survey that you would slide through the questions on your screen to answer the questions. We made it complicated because, why not? we were learning, and we really wanted to have a couple different tracks. So we wanted to have a set of questions for folks who were members, folks who weren't members, for teachers and folks who were aspiring certified Iyengar yoga teachers, as well as for studio owners. So each question might lead you into a different track of questions based on what your answers were. We had hoped that the survey would be about 20 to 25 minutes long when we'd been testing it, but we found that really the survey completion time ranged anywhere from 15 minutes to like 45 minutes. So we really appreciate the folks that stuck with it and answered all the questions for us. And then you can see in the top right corner of this slide, the group of contributors who really helped out with forming the survey, advising on the survey, and then also helping sort through some of the data that we got through the survey. To promote the survey, we relied heavily on email and our e-newsletter and reaching out to members through electronic means as well, so we could share that link. We also specifically reached out to teachers and studio owners to ask that they recruit some of their students that maybe didn't even know about the regional board or the regional association, and ask folks so we could get non-members experience. We offered an incentive also just to really show our support for teachers and studios promoting, where the top 3 teachers or studios who referred people to us, there was a question on the survey of how did you find out about the survey? And so the top 3 people, studios or teachers, would win a cash prize of $300, $200, or $100. And our top recruiter for the survey was Garden of Yoga, and then Iyengar Yoga Detroit was the second top recruiter, and there was actually a 3-way tie between Northwoods Yoga, Grand Rapids Yoga Center, and Yoga Circle in Chicago for helping us recruit participants for the survey. And we ended up having 100 total respondents, which made some of the data really easy when you have it out of 100. So the first section of the survey we used for gathering a better understanding of the demographics of the community that was responding. We used the demographic categories for race and ethnicity that are also used in the US Census. So rather than recreating the wheel, we used a model of question that already existed. And we found that 79% of respondents identified as white. The next largest group of racial identifiers was, we had 6 respondents that identified as Asian. We had 3 respondents that identified as Black or African American or Afro-Caribbean. And then we had 1 respondent identifying as American Indian and 1 that identified as both white and Alaskan Native. In terms of gender, we found that 80% of our respondents were women, 11% identified as men, and 3% identified with non-binary. The remaining percentage did not identify a gender. And then the graphic you see here, we had a volunteer, Connie, who you saw in one of the previous slides, who was at the retreat and wanted to help out. And we were having a tough time sorting through the data and looking for some extra help with how to make connections with it. And she offered to help make some great images and help us understand how data from different questions corresponded with each other. So she created this graphic for us, which shows that when we cross these sections of ethnicity, race, and gender, the largest pool of respondents for this survey was 67% of people who identified as white women. And so that graphic kind of demonstrates here what that looks like in the whole respondent pool. We also wanted to have an understanding of like what are some of the other identifiers that might show up in demographics. We wanted to look at age, annual household income, where people are, what kinds of environments they're in. And so our region is composed of some of eastern Wisconsin. Western Wisconsin is kind of shared with the upper Midwest region. And then we've got Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana. We found that most of the respondents for this survey were responding from Michigan and Illinois. We also found that most of the participants were responding that they either lived in cities or suburbs. So we had a much smaller pool of people who responded that live in a rural area or a small town. And then you can see here on this slide that our largest household income group, we had at 24%, were earning over $100,000 a year for household income. And the majority age of respondents was over the age of 45. We only had 16% of respondents that were 44 or less, 44 or under 44. So as we move forward, I think this is just helpful to bear in mind, like we can't say if this is inclusive of all Iyengar yoga practitioners in the Midwest. We're just taking data from who responded. So keeping in mind these demographics when we're looking at responses to come, right? That it may be coming from some of these experiences of where you live, how you identify, that may indicate or have an impact on what you're needing and what resources you're using. Part of what we wanted to understand with the survey is what brings people into the regional association as a member, and also why aren't folks becoming members, or why aren't we retaining folks as members? And so participants towards the beginning of the survey were asked if, first we want to know also, like, do folks understand what we are compared to what the National Association is, what INAUS is? So in the beginning, we also asked if folks belong to the National Association, and then we asked if folks belong to our regional association. We had 70% of respondents say that they belong to the National Association, and we had 63% of respondents say that they were IYAMW members. So depending on how you answered these two questions, it sent you down a different route of questions, so we could better understand why or why not you're a member. Only 22 participants responded to the question, why are you not an IYAMW member? The top reason given was that they were not aware of the organization, and that was followed by they felt there was no relevant benefit to being a part of the organization. We had 58 people respond to the question regarding the main reason for joining either the National Association or the Regional Association, and the top reason was that they wanted to feel a part of a larger Iyengar yoga community. The table on the slide here looks at the respondents who said that they were INAUS members and their main reason for joining, as well as the amount of years that they have practiced yoga. So one difference we found that feels interesting to explore further is that while to feel a part of a larger community and in order to maintain certification are top reasons for those practicing more than 20 years, practicing yoga for more than 20 years, those who were practicing between 11 and 15 years cited that their desire was to support the association. They more often cited that the reason they were joining was to support the association. So like I said earlier, one of the things we wanted to section out was who is a teacher, what kind of supports do they need, and then what kind of supports are our studio owners looking for. We found that 38% of the respondents were teachers, 46% were not teaching, and 10% were interested in becoming a certified Iyengar yoga teacher. When asked what support teachers wanted, 62% of the respondents wanted continuing teacher education. 48% wanted regional gatherings that would allow them to connect with other Midwest practitioners, and 27% wanted support promoting their own classes and workshops. For studio owners, the support that they were mostly looking for was collaborating and connecting with each other, with other studio owners in the region, as well as financial support was the second thing they wanted most, and workshops on business operation and business management. So Iyengar Yoga Association of the Midwest offers a number of benefits as part of membership. We weren't sure if folks knew what they were. So we wanted to get a sense of what do folks know about and what are they using? So if you remember taking the survey, there was like this, you had two sets of questions and they looked the same, but in one we were asking which of these benefits are you aware of? And the second set we were asking which ones have you utilized in the past? We asked respondents which benefits they were most aware of, and 75 participants answered that question. We had 72 participants answer the question about which they used. And that's, you can see that split up in the chart here. So the list of resources and then those that knew about them, those that were using them. Most participants were aware of our e-newsletter that we send out, which makes sense also because one of the number one way that folks found out about the survey was from the e-newsletter. So again, that kind of shows off how our survey results are a little skewed. All survey results are somewhat biased, but we know that most of the people that took the survey knew about the e-newsletter because that's how they found the survey. And then we also found that 89% of participants knew about the discounted pricing on yoga events in the Midwest, 83%, or that was 83%, sorry, and scholarships towards conventions and intensives and teacher trainings, as well as IYAMW sponsored events was third of the most known. We had less participants that knew about voting privileges. And you know, we can talk about that more later, but part of that is really because we haven't had enough candidates for a board seat in a little while to have an election. So that's not necessarily an opportunity that people have gotten to engage in yet. And then the thing that really struck us that we want to spend more time with is we were really surprised that a lot of people did not know about and did not ever utilize our scholarships and community grants. So both Kristen and Dawn have talked about that already. But that lack of awareness of like we're giving money away and people aren't applying for it. We're really curious about what's going on there and if it's something that we need to communicate and educate more on how to use these funds or spread the word on that they're available. And so that's something that we're really thinking about as we move forward, is where's that gap between us offering financial resources and folks receiving it and requesting it. And if you're unfamiliar with the community grant program, it's a pretty cool program. We have grant cycles twice a year, and we offer funding for folks who are CIYTs, certified Iyengar yoga teachers, who want to create greater access in their community to Iyengar yoga. So we had a really cool program that happened during the pandemic down in Indianapolis, where actually it was some students and teachers who organized street yoga, and they had weekly classes in a cul-de-sac in a neighborhood when they couldn't be meeting indoors. My studio,
Bloomington. Pardon me, it was in Bloomington. Indiana.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, there we go.
That was a great program. We love it. It's featured on the website. And then my studio here in Detroit, we've benefited from the grants before as well. We have a wellness zine that's featured on the website that was a collaboration between teachers and students as well. So if you want more ideas, we do have some of those projects featured on the website, and you're always welcome to email us and ask, what could I use this for? All right, so in addition to the benefits we listed there, we also have these sponsored events. We wanted to get a better understanding of what are folks wanting to see as regional hosted events. So you can see from the list here, well, let me go over that. I'll go over that in a moment. We only had 47%, this might've been because we were petering out towards the end of the survey, but we only had 47% of respondents say that they've ever attended an IYAMW event. We had less people participate in this question than previous questions. And only 47% of the participants said that they've ever attended one of our events. And that was about the same amount of people who also said they'd attended a retreat in the past. So I think there's some crossover there. The main reason that people said they weren't attending events or they hadn't attended events was because they didn't know about them. So that's another thing that we're taking in is, are we sharing these events well enough? Like, what can we do to make sure that these events are known? And then most people said that they have, thinking about the retreat, that's one of our main events that we host annually that Kristen talked about. We had 54% of respondents say that they have never attended one of our retreats. So again, something to think about in terms of who's attending, how can we increase access to that if folks are wanting that. The chart seen here is to demonstrate this question that we had where we asked respondents to rank the events that they'd like to see the association offer. So we had 90 people respond to that question. And then the chart shows two columns. We're looking at you could rank the events starting with 1. So like 1 was your top event that you wanted to see. So Connie, who helped us with this data, she averaged out. And so actually the lower number you see there means it was the highest ranked for most people. We averaged that out. The column to the furthest right is showing the percentage of people who put that in their 1 through 5 ranking, who put that event in their top 5. And so we can see through both of those that the top 3 categories that people are wanting to see more are asana workshops with visiting senior teachers, asana workshops with regional certified teachers, and yoga philosophy workshops with visiting scholars. All right, we also had a section in the survey that was helping us to understand how participants experience the IYAMW culture, or like what their perception of our culture is as a region, as a regional association and a community. And so we asked respondents to select which adjectives they would use to describe their experience. You can see the adjectives listed on the screen here. Most respondents had a favorable, they clicked all the favorable ones. They felt like it's really welcoming, it's really accessible, it's really inclusive. One thing we did notice that again connects back to some of the demographic information we shared in the beginning is that the 10 respondents, the 10 participants who identified as non-white, they chose exclusive, inaccessible, and biased 6 times. So we had 10 people that answered and 6 times those words were chosen. Compared to the 64 respondents who identify as white, those adjectives were only chosen 9 times. So that's something that we're thinking about and we want to keep reflecting on moving forward. And then one of the last sections was to help us think about what goals we should be prioritizing moving forward. So this was a similar question where we listed out a bunch of goals and we asked participants to rank which they felt were most important. And so we're looking again at average ranking as well as the percent rating of folks who ranked these responses within their top 3. And the most important goals that were coming up were to increase membership diversity, as well as to support teachers through increased programming. So we're going to wrap up survey results there. It was those who took it. Remember, there was a lot of questions. There's more data. This is what we felt stood out the most, and is what we're really taking into consider as we move forward. Before we head into breakout rooms, I wanted to offer a chance for folks to unmute and ask questions, and that could be for Dawn, Kristen, or I. If you had a question, like Kristen said earlier, what's been happening, for what's going to happen, or if there's any questions about the data that was just shared. Okay, well, there will be more opportunities. If stuff comes up in your small group breakout rooms, we've asked our facilitators, they may not have the answer to every question. So we've asked that we at least record them. And if we can't answer those questions for you today, we will make a point to get back to you and prioritize responding to them later on. All right, it's the fun part. We get to head into breakout rooms and talk to each other. So before we head into those, I want to just lay out expectations for the space. Each breakout room is going to have a facilitator in it, who is an IYAMW board member. The role of that facilitator is really just to help monitor time, to make sure we stay on task, and to serve as kind of a record keeper, to make sure that if big points come up, that we're recording them and bringing them back to the board. The board's actually going to meet next Sunday to go over what's happened here. I'm going to review what folks have talked about. So you will have a person in there that's your point person. And when we come back to the large group, the facilitator will be sharing out some salient points, or like what really stood out in the conversation your group had, so we can bring it into a large group discussion as well. And hopefully we'll have time for others too, that there'll be time for other folks who aren't the facilitator to chime in and offer what their experiences were, what stood out to them in the conversation. We've budgeted about 25 minutes total for these breakout rooms, and we're offering 5 questions. There's no pressure to get through all the questions. If there's one that your group feels really excited about, you're welcome to start there. They're not linear. So these are just our suggestions for what to talk about while you're in your small groups. And then we want to just review a few guidelines whenever we're going into community conversation with folks we don't know. It's helpful to just remember to be our best selves in those conversations, right? So one that's always helpful for me is to notice how much talking space I'm taking up. So I'm someone who, I mean, you can tell I just talked for like 20 minutes. I don't have a problem talking. I like talking. So in those small group settings, I want to make sure that I'm letting other folks talk as well, and being aware of how much talking space I'm taking up. And then we're also inviting folks who maybe don't talk as often to share more. And we want to hear from you too. And if talking by unmuting isn't your preferred way right now, you're also welcome to put those thoughts in the chat, and we'll make sure that we save and record that chat so we get your voice in there too. Another thing is do your best to stay on topic. We have a limited amount of time, and we want to make sure we make the most use out of it and hear from folks on these questions if we can. And then to know that, like, we might not all agree on what's talked about in the group, and that's okay. This isn't a place where we're going to be making decisions today. It's really just an information gathering place. We want to know more about all of your experiences, and we want to know more about your ideas. And so there may be some moments that are really like agree to disagree moments in this group today. And while we're doing that, keeping in mind that we want to remain active listeners and really work on trying to understand and hear what each other is saying. And also to, if an issue does come up, if a disagreement does come up, to make sure that we're speaking about the issue at hand and not necessarily the person that's saying it. So from there, we are going to, I have to add one more person to a breakout room that snuck in after I'd set them up. But after that, you'll see a screen pop up that will invite you into your breakout room. Oh, they might have disappeared. Let me confirm. And keep an eye out here for your breakout room invitation to come up. If there's any questions you have too, you're welcome to, about the breakout rooms, you're welcome to voice them now as well.
Erin, can you tell Kathleen is on her phone, so she wasn't sure. I don't know if it looks like maybe she got into a breakout room though. Must have, right? I don't see her here, so
She is in Patrina's breakout room.
okay. I think it's fine. I think she was just worried. She was like texting me, asking me to add her to mine, but I think it was just because she was afraid she wasn't gonna be able to do it. Okay, I'm gonna go to mine. I'm not facilitating, right? Or am I?
You are, if you're okay with
Okay. Yeah, it's fine. I just want to make sure. I better get there then. Okay, see you soon. Here we go. Here's everybody.
We'll have two recordings, unfortunately. I accidentally stopped it instead of pausing.
We're at 24. Is that everybody, Erin? I know it was
I think
right
that's
around.
everybody now. Yeah, we might be, I
Okay.
think we lost one or two people in the breakout room split out, so. Yeah,
I know everyone wants to debrief, but I asked Erin to put my slide back up because I realized when we were in the breakout room that one of the artists who worked on our note card project is actually on the Zoom. So I wanted to just give a shout out to Katrin, who designed the note card to the right of the t-shirt. It's not a very good big image, but it's a photograph of a piece that she did. So shout out to her and thanks again for participating and beautiful note card.
thank you. All right, well, why don't we, I'd love to hear back on what folks were talking about. So facilitators in the room, maybe we'll start with you all and have you all give like an important thing that was discussed or a salient point that was discussed, and then we can open it up to others who are participating.
Should I go first?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we had a nice discussion. Just trying to brainstorm on how we can increase the diversity. And one of the suggestions was make it more fun. And in order to get younger people to maybe utilize social media, demonstrations on TikTok, because, young people are not on Facebook. So maybe using some social media and, just lots of promotion. The gentleman was saying that his studio, he just, put a sign in the bathroom in the coffee house down the street, They also had a big promotion on radio, which was awesome that they had that connection. So those are kind of the big points from our discussion, I would say.
Great. Thank you, Jan. And Jan is a great example of someone who's not a younger teacher who's on our board. Jan's our student at large on the board. So we're really grateful to have her joining us. All right. Any other board members, facilitators want to share what your group talked about?
I'll go next. Okay, go ahead, Laura.
Okay. So diversity was the big topic in our room too. So diversity, not so much in age, but in income and access to yoga, and how like one of the teacher, she was a teacher in our group and said that she had tried for, I believe it was 8 months to teach in a prison system, but it was so cumbersome and the logistics were just so hard that it never came to fruition. But there is a big interest in getting yoga to the non-popular demographic, I guess, of what our survey said, which means finding out where people are, where we can bring it to people, because in order for them to feel comfortable practicing, going into a studio, even if it's a free class, if money's, you know, not an option, is still a really uncomfortable thing for them to do. So it's finding those opportunities elsewhere where we can bring it to people, and also understanding that it, being Iyengar yoga, can't always be our, you know, standing, seated asanas, because people in some situations are very traumatized and they just have to be handled in a different way because of what their experiences are. So just how complicated it is, but how necessary it is to have more diversity and find those populations that can't access our yoga right now. That was a big discussion.
Yeah, we did a little bit of piggybacking from diversity, but I think that we had 2 studio owners in the group, and we had a gentleman who is often on his own, basically non-teacher, and then another gentleman. But basically, the shocking thing for a lot of us was how we're getting older, and there's we're not getting into the communities that we're basically going to be a dying breed if we don't do something. And also that there is was a kind of a silver lining in our group, where we talked about how for studios, the IYAMW could really be helpful in terms of the social media. And of course, none of us on the board are really, you know, on the media, but we found somebody who might want to help us, and we could add to that thing. And from the experience that one of the owners had, was that it really did help her post-pandemic upswing. So there's an action item there. And she also, the other things that came up were that the question was, how can we give back to yoga? What are we doing, I guess, as in terms of what can we get, is also part of our practice, our seva or our karma. We are trying to give back as best we can. And the gentleman who was in, I think it was Columbia, if you want to unmute and tell your name, that's fine. He didn't know that we were even existed as a region.
Yeah, I'm from Columbia, Missouri, mid-Missouri.
Oh, Columbia. Yeah. Okay. Good. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. And so he's go ahead and tell your story, Jenna. I'll stop.
Oh yeah. So I've been doing yoga on and off for about 10 years, but then came across an Iyengar teacher, helped me nurse a knee injury. Her name's Netta Sellers. She studied with Lois at Champaign-Urbana. She's amazing, but she decided to move to Florida. So I'm here. There's not a whole lot of Iyengar going on, but again, I've done a lot of yoga in the past. But this, I love the props. I love the discipline. She tells me things that I've never been told before, and it has helped immensely. And so I want to get plugged in, kind of see what's shaking with the Iyengar community as we kind of zoom out.
And then if anyone else has anything to add, I think I touched most of what we talked about.
Well, and then
Well,
how about Dawn or Kristen as well? For your,
I can go next.
okay, great.
Oh, you want me to go first, Don, or you want to go? Okay. So we did focus mainly on diversity. We kind of wandered all over the map, but some of the topics that came up were, the feeling that diversity is very important, but can be challenging if you're in a community that's not very diverse. I think most of us are aware of the awesome work that's happening in Detroit. So maybe, maybe it's something we can do regionally. I know we've highlighted Detroit a lot, but I always feel like, people are already doing all this extra work, and then we ask them to do more work by, hosting a virtual session to share all the great things they're doing. But maybe that's something we can think about doing in the coming months, because I know there's a lot of great things happening, and I think a lot of people would love to try to be inspired and implement some of those things in their own communities. And then, the idea of age diversity also came up, and Lori suggested, the way to attract young people is turn things over to them. So bringing in younger students and teachers and kind of highlighting them and helping them encourage more people of their demographic to come and try a class. And we did talk a bit about money as a barrier. I always like to say, when I was a student, I thought yoga classes were really expensive. And then after I became a certified teacher, I felt like we should pay a lot more to go to a class because I know all the resources required to become a teacher. But I think, offering free classes might not always be feasible. Obviously, the centers and studios are struggling as well. But maybe IYAMW can help in some way sponsor some of those and see that teachers are being paid for teaching, even if it's a community class. And also probably promoting the classes that are already existing. Maybe that's something we can help with, especially if we have somebody to do some cool social media. And Lori also suggested a way to kind of branch out beyond the people that are already coming to your school, would be to look for local partners, like other nonprofits that might have constituents that are interested in doing a yoga class, and either going to them or hosting a class somewhere for people that are affiliated with that nonprofit. I think that's about it. If I miss anything, someone from the group can unmute, but go ahead.
All right, so we also talked about Detroit and highlighted all of their good work, and talked about ways that we could get into our own communities and get more community involvement. One of the things that was highlighted was that Patrina actually is really good about getting her students to come to retreats, because she personally invites them. She's going, so she says, come on, I think you'd be able to do this really well. You might enjoy it. So one of the things we discussed in our group was maybe going out into our community and personally inviting folks to come in to the studio or the classroom or wherever you're teaching, or whoever's teaching it, is to just go out and personally invite them. Another point that was made was people weren't aware of all of the benefits. So one way we need to communicate out benefits a little bit better as a board. And then we also talked about maybe giving resources for those of us who have extra money and want to help somebody who has less money. We could start a pool or a fund for like a support system for maybe do a sliding scale class or something like that. So something the board could also consider moving forward. And the final point was just we're trying to make more people aware of it and getting more outreach. So for those folks in like the Missouri gentleman, he's looking for ways to get to Iyengar yoga classes. One of that way is both Lois Steinberg and Lori offer online classes, so you could study with those guys if you don't want to travel and it's not close to you. But that was one of the ways to outreach that we talked about.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Facilitators. Great job. I'm wondering if folks who didn't speak already would want to share what felt most important to you that came up in the small group discussion that hasn't been named yet. We can take a few more minutes to share those ideas or just experiences, thoughts, whatever came up for you that you want to make sure we know about. Like I said earlier, we didn't record the small groups. We are recording this, so this will be really the place that we take that information from.
Can I just add, I didn't think to say this before, but Ginny made the very astute observation. She said, what would Mr. Iyengar do? And she said he would adapt. And I think that's a really good point. He would, you know, just like all the things that we're talking about, you know, offering online, all that stuff. So, you know, just be open to new ideas.
So here in Quincy, Illinois, hello, Daniel, I sent you a short chat. There's 2 studios here, and I'm also available online, as is Dan Barrett, and I'm free for a donation. And here, what I noticed is when you go outside to certain groups, Iyengar yoga has to learn to leave its mold a little bit. So when you teach a bunch of little kids at Teen Reach, be prepared for chaos, but it's okay. And if you teach a bunch of vets, be prepared for a lot of chairs, you know, but you guys know that. It's just that when you go to them and see what they need, the form that we've learned as certified teachers gets modified a great deal.
Thanks, Carol.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else have thoughts they want to make sure we hear before we wrap up the larger group discussion? We're running under time, so there's plenty of time to share.
Hi, this is Karen from Cleveland Heights. One thing we talked about in our group was, I know this has been in a discussion for years, but how do we get across to people how, as a school of yoga, we are distinct? Not better than, but distinct. So Daniel, for example, didn't know the kind of resources we have to help a sore knee in a really intelligent, progressive way. And I think just somehow we need to be able to communicate that and get people excited about our subject. And then I think we still have some work to do on our reputation, because maybe from some old school teaching, or who knows all the reasons, people think Iyengar yoga is rigid, when the truth is we're not rigid, we're intense. And we're actually not rigid at all. We're ultimately adaptable. I thought of that because of what Carol just said. We adapt. You adapt to your group, time of year, condition. We adapt to everything. That's why we have 50 ways to teach a dog pose. So if we could get this kind of thing across, I think a lot of people who might have been turned off to yoga, or were not interested in the kind of yoga that they once tried, could find a home with us. You know, that's all.
And I would add, in our group, I mentioned that I teach youth, and that's why I think Iyengar yoga is great for young people, especially after this week with all those articles about girls and young people and mental illness and what they're going through since the pandemic, that I think Iyengar yoga does really help if we can get over the rigidity of it and go to them.
Rhonda, you should reach out to us if you want any funding for that teen and youth program. We'd love to be supporting her on that.
I was going to piggyback on that a little bit, because I've been talking to some of the Milwaukee folks that teach in college. And one of the biggest boons since COVID, really, the sort of shift is that a lot of the homework, a lot of the feedback, a lot of their of how the kids are engaging with yoga is way more mental than it is physical. And I think that, you know, being distinct. I think there's a lot that we offer on that mental level that maybe other methods don't. So anyway, I think just wanted to bring that.
Yeah, I like that. That also highlights that the Milwaukee teachers do have a unique relationship with UW Milwaukee, where they actually have a curriculum that can meet gen ed requirements. So that's another way to bring in younger folks. And having gone to River West Yoga Shala when I lived in Milwaukee, there's a lot of carryover that happens from the college students into the studio over the years. So, all right, maybe one or two more comments if anybody has something they want to make sure that we hear.
That reminded me, I met someone a couple of weeks ago who had first been introduced to Iyengar yoga at the University of Chicago because Patrina taught there for a long time. And that class has kind of been, I don't know, Patrina, if you started that, but that class has been handed down to several teachers in the meantime. So, I think they have a yoga club that, I don't know, it looks like Patrina stepped away, but that would be another model to look into. So, and some of the people I know have gone on to become certified Iyengar yoga teachers years later. So.
Yeah, that was a long-term program started through the community, and people just passed it down. And when it got passed down to me, it was passed down through some Iyengar teachers and other teachers that started it. But it was it's a really good program. I think one of our applications is from scholarship applications is from one of these teachers there now. So
Katrina.
Mhm.
In 1983, the class at the University of Chicago was handed to me by a non-Iyengar teacher. And so in 83, I was teaching there, and then it continued. So I think it's still continuing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, one of the she studied with Heather Haxo Phillips in San Francisco, and she's she's interested in Iyengar yoga, and she's gotten training. And it was other Iyengar teachers before that who moved away or are not going down there. It's on the south side, so it's a long trek.
I know where it is.
Yeah. So anyways, but those models, it's true. A lot of people still do Iyengar yoga from that program. A lot of people didn't, but a lot of people did. So, and what I found is that they really had a hard time moving, a lot of them. Or so and other people wanted to just get out of their head because they were always in their studies. So it was tricky for training because you have to get into the psyche of your students in a way, in a healthy way. But it was good. It was a good program.
What might be helpful for people if they have a studio is the Illinois Department of Human Services has a whole network of teen reach organizations throughout the whole state, and their after-school program for kids, and they're usually low income and they're a diverse group of kids. And it's good to reach out and see if your community has a teen reach.
Great. And then maybe we can consider too how the regional association can be supportive of like compiling resources like this so that folks have more awareness of what does exist. And if you all know of resources that you think would be beneficial for other practitioners and studio owners and teachers to know about, that could be something that we support in dispersing. Well, I think if there's no final thing that someone's really excited to share, we'll pass it over to Dawn for our send off.
All right, thank you everybody for sharing everything you've said so far. It was great to hear, great to learn. I do encourage you to consider volunteering for either the board or one of the committees. It's usually just time commitment wise is a couple hours a month. So very easy, very doable if you'd like to consider volunteering for one of them. We also have some skills we're looking for. So Patrina, your person that may be able to help us on social media would be spectacular. That is one of the things. If you are a writer or a planner, event planner, we would love to talk to you. Also, anything that was said today, or if you want to email contact@IYAMW.org, your suggestions and ideas, we would put them in the notes from today. If you send them, we'll add them to it. Just some things to look ahead to. We are going to come out with an annual report, so we will report out on last year's doings so that you guys can see what we've done. That's coming in the next few weeks, I hope. And we'll also put it on the website. This recording and the notes from this member meeting will be on the website in the near future. A big shout out to Kristen Kepnick for leading us in the last 3 years. Thank you so much, Kristen.
And my pleasure.
And a final plug that if you need a scholarship or if you have a student that wants a scholarship to go to the convention, deadline is midnight tomorrow, Monday night. So, and Patrina sent out a handful of newsletters in the last couple weeks with the link. It's also on our scholarships and grants page on the website. And there's live stream options, so if folks can't travel, and there's also options for in-person scholarships, and there's a couple left that include a travel stipend. All right. Well, it was great to be with you all on a beautiful Sunday. If you have anything, if any questions, comments that come up later on, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And I hope you have a wonderful week.
Question.
Yes.
Before we go. So I'm calling for volunteers. Are you going to send out a broadcast, a broad email outlining the committees and what to sign up?
That's a great idea. We can do that. Yeah.
Will now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Yes.
We're on it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
These are the ideas we need.
Yes. Yes.
Sometimes the simplest ones.
And Dawn, I sent you a Teen Reach locator and a VFW locator.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.